Hello and welcome back to Movie Time with Matt and Derek. I am Matthew Lyons.
I'm Derek Tirrell.
And today we are discussing the 93rd Annual Oscars with our on-site reporter for the Oscars, Miss Megan Tomlin. How are you?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Pretty great. It's good to be back.
Talking about movies again.
I know,
Yeah.
it's been so, we did this last February,
Yeah.
so it's crazy how late the Oscars even are this year.
I know.
I was talking to you guys about how I had so much catching up to do watching films because I almost like forgot what weekends they were going to be.
Me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
For sure.
That's
crazy,
okay,
crazy
though.
year. but
Yeah.
Good to get some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
good that even in a year where, everything's so messed up with the movie order and movie releases
Right.
that we still get to do this,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Awesome, let's get right into it.
Yeah, we have a lot of Best Picture nominees. Today we are going to be focusing on the Best Picture Oscar itself. So, for nominees, we have Mank, Minari, Promising Young Woman, Nomadland, Sound of Metal, The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, and The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Pretty good.
Quite the lineup.
It is quite the lineup. How
There's
would you
go ahead.
overall just kind of describe the feeling going into this? Is it like, wow, there's so many great movies? Does it feel a little bit lackluster to you guys?
It's not my favorite year, I would say, but a lot of the diversity this year is really good. And I don't even mean diversity of like, casting or like movies or anything. It's just, plot diversity is
Yeah.
different. As you know, like behind camera diversity is just as important as in front of camera diversity. There's oddly 2 films centering in the summer of '69 too, with a lot of race relations happening too. So it seems like a lot of the pieces are cohesive, even though they're very disparate. Like if you look at some of the stuff last year, you went all the way from like Little Women to Joker.
Right.
And this
Yeah.
year I feel like things are a little bit more,
Yeah.
they kind of live together as like,
I definitely would
vibe.
agree with that.
If you wanna say that, yeah.
I would agree with that for sure.
And even, going off what you said, we have two depictions of Fred Hampton.
correct, yeah,
And so, wildly different. It's an interesting year for.
Yeah.
for sure.
So let's start with Mank. What did you guys think of Mank, and what would you say where would you put it in the running for Best Picture?
I think it's one of those movies that knows that it wants to be nominated for Best
Yeah.
Picture from the get-go. And it's good, but I feel like it just has this vibe of like early 2000s movies about making movies that's not really like in anymore, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I agree.
I know that the film, the screenplay for it was actually written in the 90s, and they had a cast ready to go, and it fell through.
Wow.
And so and that makes sense to me, knowing that kind of the feel it has. There was a lot of movies about making movies in the 90s and the 2000s, early 2000s, and it just seems kind of like tonally out of place a little here. It's good, but it just seems like it's trying for the Oscar, and I don't think it's going to get it. We've progressed past that style of, film and like that plot structure for Oscars, I think, at this point. What do you
Yeah.
guys think?
I totally agree with you, and I feel like a lot of the films like Promising Young Woman and Judas and the Black Messiah, like they focus on big issues that are
Right.
relevant today. And although it's it's an entertaining and very well made movie, it's not really offering too much in the wider conversation.
Yeah. I think I'd agree with everything you both said. I didn't know about that it was, originally going to be a lot earlier, but I can definitely see it now that, I'm hearing that.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I mean, like, filming it all in black and white, and it has, if you haven't seen it, it has, like, title cards and things like that and cut shots. The plot structure is a little interesting because it does go back and forth between, present day of the film and then, back to the flashbacks and everything like that. But it's nothing groundbreaking. It's interesting. I am probably going to say something that most people will not agree with, but maybe they will. I'm not a huge fan of Citizen Kane to begin with. I know it's the best movie ever made, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I get why it is, but, just from taking film classes in college, I know why it's supposed to be. So I wasn't really like intrigued to watch like the making of Citizen Kane,
Right.
to be quite honest. But have you guys seen Citizen Kane?
No, actually.
I didn't see it until I was in my later part of college anyway.
Yeah,
So
I haven't seen that one yet either.
it's definitely something you want to take like in a film class with someone that can like walk you through it.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and analyze and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the list, but
Yeah,
I mean, when
mean
you
the
have some
acting's
movies.
good and people were cast well. But yeah, it's an Oscar movie, but it's not.
right.
Yeah.
All right, so next up, let's talk about Minari. So last year we had Parasite winning the Best Picture.
Yes, which you called, by the
Yes.
way.
Oh, yeah,
You did.
yeah.
I
all that.
rewatched last year's in preparation for this year just to get
Okay.
like an idea of like what I was reminding myself what we were going into. And we were both like, it's definitely going to be 1918. Like it's a
Yeah.
open and closed case. And you were like, but what about this? And we both were like, no. So I was like, yeah, Matt knew what he was talking about. Yeah, you called that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that was cool because I mean I mentioned it and then like leading up to it I was like, well it's gonna be 9/17, and then Parasite, it won 3, and I was like, and then it took home the big one.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
My favorite thing of last year is Byung Jung Ho holding the Oscars and having them kiss during the red
Awesome.
carpet area. That was fun.
I'm just so glad he won.
Yeah,
But
he deserved it.
with Minari, what were your thoughts on the film? And again, same question: where would you put it in the ranking for Best Picture?
I thought it was interesting. I think that a lot of the Korean films have these plots that almost like you're like, how is that going to work as a whole movie? And then it expands out and it's like this little like slice of life, but it's so like gripping at the same time. The runtime is a little bit shorter than some of the other movies, but it didn't feel like it was too short, and some of them felt like they were dragging on, and I was like, this is a good pace, the editing is good, and it's like drawing you in. And like the topic is like, a Korean family moves to the Ozarks to start a farm. And you're like, that does not sound like a gripping film. But when
Right.
you watch it, like the character development, the conflict between the parents, the introduction of the grandmother figure, the kids figuring out what it means to be like the only person of color in their community, it's a really good movie. I liked
Yeah.
it a lot. I think it has a shot, but it's not my pick, but I think it has a shot for sure.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not my pick either, but I also want to echo a lot of what you said. I really like how, that in Parasite as well, they hone in on like this very specific story and this very like specific idea that's very simple, but
Right.
then they use the characters and other events that happen within the story to like really expand on it and really make it a compelling story, even though it has this like very basic, simple idea in the first place. And I think there's like something very valuable in that.
For sure.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, even with Parasite, like it's about being of like Asian descent and that kind of world, but at the same time, it deals with the American dream,
Right.
and it's a very involving and expansive kind of story, and that was really compelling.
I think it was interesting to see, especially in the characters of the two little kids, is just to see like what it means to have one foot in your parents' culture and your grandparents' culture, and then one foot in this new culture, and they're kind of like split. Especially the little boy is like, that's not what a grandmother's supposed to be because he's never met his Korean grandmother before, and he's kind of getting culture shock from his own culture. And from, there's been obviously a lot in the news about, attacks on Asian Americans and the unfortunate, realities that people in their community face. And like, that's something that's very common where I've been reading that they feel that kind of split feeling that those characters are emoting. So like back to what you were saying, Matt, it is a topical piece, even though it's about like people running a farm. It
Right.
really is like a social justice piece, I
Yeah.
feel like. Yeah, it's good.
The performances were amazing, and I honestly think Yoo Jung Young, apologies, I know I butchered it. I think that she is, if not the front runner, she's my pick for winning Best Supporting Actress.
Me too.
She was incredible. She was so captivating, and she pulled, no spoilers, but both kind of parts to her character very, very well.
Yes. She almost had to have this like duplicity between playing, no spoilers, but like very comedic, like the punchline type stuff in the first half. And then just like the gripping like drama of it all in the second
Yeah.
half. It's almost like they're two different characters, and she pulls it off like very, very well. I think she's getting it. She got the BAFTA. I think she got the
Right.
SAG award too. So those are usually like little indicators for you.
Yeah, but incredible cast and an incredible performance by her. So now let's go to Promising Young Woman. This film, I don't think anyone was really expecting it to be as good as it was,
Right.
but this was a great movie.
I thought it was captivating. What did you think, Derek?
So I haven't seen this one.
You haven't seen this one
This is
yet.
one of the two that I've not seen and are on my list before.
Plenty of time.
I do
Yeah.
have plenty of time. So that is one of the two that I will be seeing before.
I
the
definitely
event.
recommend it.
Yeah.
Again, like Matt was saying, it's definitely another social justice issue. I don't think giving anything away is like, it's about, the plight of women during Me Too and how that kind of works. And, how men use that as like revenge and things like that.
Right.
So it does have some crazy twists to it. What did you think about the plot twists throughout it, without giving away what it is?
So I had, like, it wasn't on my radar. I heard someone say, this is the best movie I've ever seen. I was like, what? So I watched the trailer, and I had, like, a preconceived notion of what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be a lot darker than it was. And then once I saw the movie, I realized... So I thought it was going to be more along the lines of Joker, but it wasn't
Yes.
as far on the spectrum as that was, I would say.
Yeah.
But it still dealt with those heavy themes. And, I mean, it made me laugh. It made me, like, shudder. It made me cringe. And for a whole lot of different reasons. It's a great kind of dissection of this Me Too movement
Yeah.
from both sides of the spectrum. And it's a great character study, and it deals with a lot of compelling themes about, you know, trauma and relationships. And, yeah, I think, you know, it was just a really well-made movie.
Yeah, I think they covered all their bases with Me Too, because they talk about, you know, aspects of how the institution allows this to happen, how men allow it to happen, how, you know, families might not be supportive, how friends might not be supportive, women not supporting other women. I think they covered it all, but it didn't feel like an after-school special or like a PSA or anything. It was a very organic story. You're like, even though it is a little farcical in some places, like, you don't think it would actually ever happen. When you
Right.
watch it, you'll see, like,
Okay.
it is kind of almost in like an alternate plane happening.
Okay.
But you're like, I get the motivations behind everything that's happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did read about that type of thing where, you know,
Yeah.
it is like a little, you know, you have to make some, ignore a few things.
Exactly.
And kind of let a few things, like, accept, you know.
Yeah,
that-
just open yourself up to
Right,
the world
right.
it's presented.
For sure. And
Yeah.
Carey Mulligan does a lot of heavy lifting in that movie,
Yeah.
too. She does a great job.
What are your thoughts on her winning the Best Actress Oscar?
I am in a toss-up here, because if we go to Nomadland after this, I think if we can go to Nomadland after
Yes,
this, I think
sure.
it'll explain it a little bit better. I think Carey Mulligan has a good shot, though people are thinking Frances McDormand for Nomadland, but I think Nomadland has so much else going for it that sometimes when films are nominated in several categories and it's almost like a guarantee, they try to find one category to not, you know, reward it in. And I think that's where Carey Mulligan has a chance to kind of slide in on Frances McDormand for Nomadland.
Right. So let's talk about Nomadland.
Sure.
So good.
That's my
Fantastic.
pick for Best Picture.
Okay.
It's
100%.
mine as well. I
Yeah.
think it's the clear front runner, winning the
Absolutely.
Golden Globe, the PGA.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very timely, and it, again, I mean, I'm gonna repeat myself. It deals with so many issues.
Right.
And it's a very subtle movie. It's not in your face like Promising Young Woman or even, you know, Trial of Chicago 7. It, like, those quiet moments, they spend enough time delving into her character
Yeah.
and seeing the world around her and seeing her, like, the way she navigates through it. Those quiet moments, they really have a heavy impact. And I was telling my sister when I watched it, I teared up, and it was like a 5-second shot, and it was her with the New Year's Eve party hat, and she, I can't. It was a very emotional movie.
And
Yeah.
that's just from like an establishing shot. Like that's not
Right.
even a dialogue. There's really
Yeah.
not a much. There is like plot happening, but it's not like a, you know, a turning point or anything. It's just
Right.
like you watching another human being. Essentially.
It was so good. It was also my pick.
Yeah.
I think this was the clear winner from what I saw. I just love this movie. The writing was amazing
So
too.
good.
Just the people felt so human in it. You know,
Yeah.
it
Yes.
feels like actual conversations like you'll have with people, like at the store or just like the conversations felt so grounded and so human. And that just really stuck out to me because sometimes in movies, you know, the dialogue can feel forced,
Right.
or even good writing doesn't always feel like realistic writing, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So to see like these scenes where like, you know, people are just talking about like normal things or like they're talking about their way of life in this instance and like how it makes them feel, it just felt so like genuine and
Yeah.
real, and it really like immerses me in like that situation
Yeah.
when I like hear those conversations.
I was saying to someone that it almost felt like you were watching a documentary, but you had to keep reminding yourself that Frances McDormand is an actress. There are other actors in there, but a lot of that feel that they got from it is a lot of the supporting characters in the film are actually people who live that life.
Yeah.
And if you look at the cast list, the credits for that, most people are just playing themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like not 100% sure about Carey Mulligan in terms of Frances McDormand, because she's an actress who had to like put herself into this real world that these people are living in.
Yeah.
And she didn't stick out like a sore thumb at all the entire
No.
time. You believed she's part of this culture that's happening too. And for how little plot there is,
Yeah.
and for how long the runtime is, it's over 2 hours. It didn't feel like that at all.
Right.
It was moving so quickly.
Yeah. I want to bring up one thing. You said this a few months ago. I walked into, I think, your Bridge blog, and you said, Matt, I can't watch another Frances McDormand movie.
Yep.
Has your opinion changed after seeing this?
And I actually was like saying today, I'm gonna have to defend myself to Matt, but I can't defend myself because I think that Frances McDormand being, it's still a Frances McDormand type character, but again, what Derek was saying is that these seem like real people, that it's to the point where I almost like kind of just forgot it was Frances McDormand. I think her supporting cast just being real people brought something out in her. And like, granted, she is a trained actress and she did a lot of heavy lifting and everything like that, but it didn't bother me because I wasn't like, I'm watching a Frances McDormand movie. I got lost in it and forgot that I was watching a movie a couple times.
That happened to me a lot with this one.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just can't hit hard enough that the dialogue was so well done. In the shots, everything was just amazing.
That's what I wanted to ask you guys. Is this, or are there other ones that you're like, obviously. That's one that I wish I could watch in a theater just because of the scope of the establishing landscape shots and just how big of, a setting it is. It's like the whole, it's all of the Badlands and it's all of Arizona. And then she gets to the beach and it's all of the beach. It's just, I feel like on a big screen it would have just been like, the setting would have been its own character almost.
Yeah.
Were there any other ones that you guys wish you could have seen on a big screen?
I would have loved to have seen Judas and the Black Messiah on the big screen.
That would have been awesome.
Especially like those speeches that Daniel Kaluuya gives in those church. It would have been fantastic to experience that with the crowd.
Yeah.
For me, Sound of Metal.
Yes.
I think not only just seeing on the big screen, but hearing it with those, big speakers. Because the sound design was just so well done in that movie. And like to hear that with like the big speakers would have just been
I almost like felt fortunate that I got to watch Sound of Metal at home because I feel like in the theater, I mean, it would have been good, but I feel like it would have been like such a visceral experience toward the end of the movie that I don't know if I would have had to like step out for a couple minutes and come back in.
With like headphones,
was
nice too.
We can go into Sound of Metal if you want. Since
Absolutely.
We're already talking.
This was my favorite one of the group. I loved Sound of Metal. I was still preparing, and Matt requested that I watch this one, and
Wicked good.
Best recommendation ever. It was so good. I loved it. The characters were great. Everything felt so real. I cared so much about these characters. Definitely got attached. The sound design was
Perfect.
outstanding. I am shocked that they could even really make me feel like I was in that situation the way they did.
Yeah.
It's
so
crazy.
Disconcerting.
It is.
It's so disconcerting, and I think people know what Sound of Metal's about if they know what it's about.
Yeah.
But going into it, I had heard that they kind of put you in the point of view of the
Yes.
person who is deaf, and for me, they also talk about the cochlear implant aspect of it. My uncle has cochlear implants and is completely deaf, so it was interesting just for me as a person who has tons of experience, engaging with someone like that. For the sound design to put you into it, it kind of changed my perspective about what I'm dealing with when I'm talking to him and what he's seeing from his point of view. That hit close to home for me, and it was overwhelming. I got teared up at a couple spots because I was like, oh wow, you think someone has a cochlear implant and they can hear, but that's not what it is at all.
No. I mean, there's a scene when when a character gets the implants and then there's a touching moment that should be, a very great experience for him, and it's not what it should be, if that makes sense, towards the end of the film.
I almost saw the ending coming from a mile away just because I have some experience with the deaf community, but that was heartbreaking. And it's a movie and this doesn't give anything away, it's a movie without a resolution.
Yeah.
Which makes it so interesting plot-wise.
I feel like I also, could see where the ending was going. But I didn't think that took away from the film at all.
No.
It was great. It really was. Just to see like, that people in like these situations can come together and like can support each other, and like they're not alone, and they really like benefit from being together and like getting through things together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was some of the most heartwarming moments of the movie was when they're racing to do the alphabet and sign language,
Yeah.
and like stuff like that was really nice to see.
Just like the importance of having a community and
Yeah.
just feeling like you're a part of something when you're not necessarily a part of like the mainstream,
Right, when you feel like an
abled,
outsider.
Yeah. It's a lot different. And again, to keep going back, I think Matt, you're so right. Like all of these have that thread of like there's some, group that needs to be, highlighted, and this is, the deaf community, and there's people who have, disabilities. It's every single film this year has some sort of like a message about some sort of like aspect of life.
Yeah.
Right. Real quick before we move on, I want to mention Paul Rassi.
Yes.
His performance, as soon as I saw him on screen and he had a great scene, I was like, oh my God, I hope he gets nominated.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to see him nominated. His role was so like impactful on the characters and even the audience. What he said,
Right.
it was just a brilliant performance.
There's a scene where he starts tearing up and crying, and like you can understand almost exactly why he's crying to the point where there's nothing spoken and he's just welling up, and you're like, I understand why you're getting upset in that way. He was powerful in that. It was good. It was really good.
All right, next up, let's talk about Judas and the Black Messiah.
All right. Go ahead.
Do you want to, Matt?
Sure,
start.
I'll
You
go.
haven't
So
started
I
yet.
think this was my favorite movie of the Best Picture nominees. I was just immersed in every single frame of it. The performances, I don't even have to talk about them. Daniel
No.
Kaluuya, the Best Supporting Actor Oscar, it's his.
It's his. He won
It's-
it.
yeah.
He's done.
Well deserved. And I mean, I had known about Fred Hampton, and obviously after seeing Trial of Chicago 7, I knew, kind of had a different perspective on that. But to experience his character, and they did it in a way where it's not a standard biopic. You see it through like 3 other different lenses, aside from, his own. And it was a really powerful movie. And the speeches in the movie that I kind of talked about earlier, aside from Daniel Kaluuya's performance, the messages behind it, and how timely it is.
Yeah.
Incredible movie.
It's nice to say, oh yeah, it still resonates like that. Those conflicts are still happening, but then you stop and think those conflicts are still happening.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
how have we not gotten past that? It's tough.
Yeah.
But he's gonna win for sure for that. My thing sometimes with like historical pieces is I know how it ends, so I feel like I'm always having this like anticipation of like it getting to
Yeah.
like the culminating
Yeah.
point. And so the pace in some places for me just felt slow, not because the movie itself was slow, not because of the editing. It's because I was waiting to get to the massacre scene at the end, and I was like,
Right.
are they going to show? I didn't know. I was like, are they going to show it? Is it going to cut to black and be like a title card? Like I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And then when it got there, I was like, okay, and here's where the action picks up a little bit. That's
Yeah.
almost how I felt originally about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood last
Yeah.
year, because you're waiting for like the Sharon Tate scene,
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen.
That's what's so brilliant about Tarantino.
And
those
that's
movies.
why that movie is like, that was so good last year. But
Yeah.
That was great.
it's like you're waiting to see like how far are we going to take the plot of this, because that story, even though it happens during the summer of '69, it extends all the way to the '90s. Like theoretically, if you look at O'Neill's involvement with everything, it goes all the way to the '90s. So I'm like, how far are we going to take this thing?
Right.
So for me, the pacing just felt a little slow because I was like, okay, how much detail are we going into? But the acting was fantastic in it. The special effects are really good in that movie too. And it's just, the plot is tragic.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's tragic.
Yeah, going off what Matt was saying, like the speeches were just like
Yes.
so powerful, and they really like overwhelm you, and it's like it really gets you to think and like feel,
Yeah. Definitely.
especially like where this is such a relevant topic like
Right.
currently. So
Which is, the Trial of Chicago 7,
Yeah.
same
Perfect
kind
segue.
of deal. Perfect
Right,
segue.
yeah.
good job.
It's almost like I teach English. Go ahead.
I love this movie. I know I was reading an article today, and a lot of people were like, this is like the most Sorkin movie ever. And I mean, yes, but I mean, as a fan of Sorkin and his dialogue and his writing, I love the movie.
Yeah.
I thought the editing was fantastic. In terms of directing, there's nothing really special.
Nope.
He
Yeah.
points the camera, lets the actor speak, and I mean that's really all he needs to do because
Right.
the performances, great ensemble, and just a fascinating story that I didn't know of prior to seeing the movie.
It's definitely a Sorkin movie. That was my point I was going to say about that. But you're absolutely right. The thing that it felt for me is it was on Netflix and it felt like a Netflix movie, but not in like a, I'm not saying like a Lifetime movie or anything like that,
Right.
but some Netflix movies are like, they're on Netflix, you watch them, they go away. I don't know if it necessarily needed to be nominated. I think some performances could have been nominated, but it's a good movie with an interesting plot, but does it need, I could have seen that also being a miniseries
Yeah.
instead of a film. And I think that's where kind of my hang up is on it. There is one moment in there that I was like, that was powerful. And
Yes.
are you going to say,
I
go ahead.
was just about to say that.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, there's I watched it and I said, I literally paused because I was watching on my laptop, paused it, ran into my sister's room and I said, you need to watch this. And I took a solid 5-minute break and just thought about what I just saw. It was like, wow, that was intense.
It's and I mean it's a historical piece, so I feel like we can talk about it. But I'm
Yeah.
assuming we're talking about the same part. I was crying. There's a scene where a black man is bound and gagged in a United States courtroom, and then you stop and think this happened and was allowed
I know.
in the 60s. This is like I mean, for me, 69. That's 20 years before I was born. That's not a big
Right.
deal. And just like watching it play out. And the courtroom is just silent, and like you can just feel like the sob in your throat as you're watching. It's so disturbing, and unfortunately, so timely.
Yeah.
Still,
The way like directors are able to like capture that moments like that and make you feel that way just by like that imagery is just, they really do a good job of conveying like how
Yeah.
you should feel and
yeah,
at that.
Going
moment.
off what both of you said, I mean, the way, I know I just kind of knocked Sorkin's directing,
yeah,
but
yeah.
but I mean, that moment, the way he was able to capture just the silence in the courtroom
Right.
and everyone just looking and staring and be like, is this real? And Yahya Abdul-Mateen's, his performance in that moment, incredible.
Stoic,
Yes.
so good.
Watch that movie if you haven't
Yeah,
seen it.
watch
It's on
it.
Netflix.
It's very good.
Yeah.
I did say it maybe doesn't deserve to be a Best Picture nominee, but I think in terms of that one, I think out of all of the films is the one that connects most, besides Promising Young Woman, to what's happening right now. And I think just as an education piece, everyone should watch it because not everybody knows that happened. And I think it's important to know your history, kind of.
Do you think Sorkin will win Best Original Screenplay?
I'm not sure. What are you thinking?
I think, hold on, this is adapted, right?
Is this adapted? I know Nomadland's adapted.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know, because the only thing for writing I was thinking is Nomadland, but that's adapted from
Right.
a nonfiction book. He might, if it's
He won the
up.
Golden Globe, and he's a brilliant writer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He does have an Oscar before. I'm not sure. I think he probably will win it. But I mean, for Promising Young Woman, I think that's also a strong contender for
Yeah.
writing.
I could see this kind of being one of those ones that like goes either way. One of the ones that kind of surprises you night of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some of them are very easy to, say, all right, best supporting actor, But some of them I feel like I just get surprised the night of. And I
Oh,
feel like this
yeah.
is going to be one of those ones
Yeah.
that, there's no clear winner on that one.
no. I don't
He's definitely got a shot, though.
Yeah.
He's definitely in the running for it, for
Oh, yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last up, we have The Father.
Interesting.
I know, yes, you have a lot of thoughts about this, so I'm just going to let you
Go.
take it away.
My thing about The Father, it's not several thoughts, it's just one thought that as I was watching it, I actually was keeping in the back of my mind because at the point that I was watching it, I knew I was going to talk to you guys, so I was like, I need to bring this up. I would love to just draw the plot structure of this movie and see what it looks like, because it's not this. It's like a spiral into offshoots, into starts and stops and back. The plot structure is the thing that I think gets you to really step into the shoes of Anthony Hopkins' character.
Yeah.
And without the way that it's cut and laid out that way, I feel like it would be just another movie about isn't it so sad that our dad has Alzheimer's? It's
Right.
definitely again, kind of like Sound of Metal, it's disconcerting how much they put you into the
Yeah.
psyche of that person.
Yeah.
But it took me a couple scenes to catch up with what was going on.
Yeah, me too.
The fact that it was like different actors playing the same character, scenes being shown like twice in a row with different actors, scenes being shown twice in a row from this perspective and then this perspective. The fact that like there's this whole plot line of her cooking a chicken and it shows up like the chicken is done, but then it cuts to she's preparing the chicken, they've eaten the chicken, back to her buying the chicken, and it's like you're trying to figure out which way is which.
Yeah.
But then you realize, like, they're doing that to put you into the mind of someone who has Alzheimer's and how, confusing it is for them. Now imagine you're just watching this movie, expand that out to that's your every single day.
Yeah. I think
Sad.
Anthony Hopkins' performance, he's an incredible actor regardless.
Yeah.
This was just a mesmerizing performance.
It was so good. I think I cried the most during. I've said I've cried like 100 times, but it's a sad season. It's a sad season, I would say. But
That's appropriate,
This-
with the year that we had.
but I mean, right? You need some catharsis
Right,
after.
yeah.
But there were like 2 or 3 times in that movie where I had to like, get myself together because it was devastating.
That's one of
to
like the
watch.
coolest parts about movies is that it can put you into like
Yeah.
the shoes of people,
Right.
And with like a book, you can get a lot of good sensory and stuff, but to actually like see, hear, like feel, all those things happening at once, like right in front of your eyes, with any movie like this that puts you into someone's shoes,
Yeah.
that you can't relate to as is. It's just awesome that we have movies and they can do that. you know?
Right, and then it's like that's why we all love movies. We
Yeah.
either want to see ourselves or we want to see into a world that we don't have the ability to look into.
Yeah.
So that's why we love film. I mean, that's the whole point of everything, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned before we started that you had a lot of thoughts, or like, you wanted to talk about this one. And I went to get a cup of water, and I was thinking, what is she going to talk about? And I remembered a quote from Stephen King talking about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Yeah.
That he made a film that was designed to hurt people. Mm-hmm. I think that is what The Father was, but not in a negative way. Like, they wanted to put you in those shoes and feel uncomfortable and be confused, and they did that perfectly.
It's just like you see there's like one character obviously in it who is not very sympathetic to the plight of, Anthony Hopkins' character.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see where he's coming from with it, but then when you're put into Anthony Hopkins' shoes, you're like, we need to be a little bit more understanding of, people in this situation. Like, again, every subgroup of the population this year is being represented at the Oscars. Like, elder care is something that's being brought up. And that's why I think, back to the way beginning, Mank just doesn't fit in with it. It doesn't fit the tone of, like, why people are making film nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, film is there to entertain, to put us into those worlds, but I mean, Oscar films are there
Right.
in a sense to kind of, bring light and awareness to things as
Yeah,
well.
that's why we don't see, Godzilla versus Kong, or, like,
Right.
movies like that, big blockbusters, stuff that is meant to entertain. You don't see it as much in, this setting.
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, I think that concludes our conversation.
great.
Yeah, it's great.
We all have Nomadland picked.
Yes.
We'll see what happens.
Locked
We will
in.
see.
We'll
I think
see.
Frances McDormand's going to get her Oscar even if she doesn't get Best Picture. Even if she doesn't get Best Actress, because she'll still win if it wins Best Picture because she produced
Right.
too. So
Oh,
that's
okay,
why I
yeah,
think
yeah.
Carey Mulligan might get it.
I mean, there's so many great films. I'll be happy, for the most part, if the Oscars are pretty good about, kind of, making sure most people have a little bit of gold. But this was, even a year where the movie system is so disrupted, we still have some incredible films to watch
Right.
and talk about here.
We'll see if we're right. Matt, you were right last year, so let's see if we can
No,
go 2
now
for 2.
that I'm on the same side
we
as
can
you,
go,
hopefully you
2
can
for
get-
2 here.
Yeah,
Be great.
absolutely.
We shall see.
Well, this has been Movie Time with Matt and Derek. Thank you for watching.
Goodbye.